Perfect. Okay, so tell me, John, what was your childhood like?
I was born in Glasgow in Scotland, and but
Okay.
then when I was about 4 or 5, we moved further north to a kind of quite a big village called Bridge of Allen. Um,
Okay.
and uh, it was very close to Stirling. And when I was about 10, um, Stirling University started. It was a completely new university. Um, and one of the really good things about it was that it had this art centre.
Okay.
Um, kind of was kind of in the middle of nowhere, and our house was, practically on the campus of the university. Um, and so
Did your
there was
like
tons of
dad go
music.
to that? I was gonna say,
Sorry?
did your dad go to the university or
No,
you
he didn't.
just
No,
okay.
no, 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 no. They weren't. They weren't. No, they didn't really have much did anything to do with it. But
Okay.
it was just really handy for me because I was beginning to get into music, and there was tons of concerts on there. There was loads of bands came as well as opera and theatre, and it was kind of so I had this kind of incredibly cultured upbringing, but that was kind of in the middle of nowhere in
Mm,
in in Scotland, and
okay.
um and when I was about 16, I was just so obsessed with music that I was pretty clear that I was going to be a musician. Um, I didn't really know that it would take the form as a composer until a bit later. But when I was 18, I decided to go to university and study music. And by the time I left university, I turned into a composer.
Do you is there a conversation that you had with your parents that really sticks out to you or some advice they gave you that you really hold on to still as an adult?
Um, and no, not really. In fact, it was a little bit awkward because my dad, although he'd been a, a saxophone player in a jazz band, it was an amateur. But he made his living. He was an engineer basically, and he was a bit nervous about me going into music, and in fact didn't really want me to go into music. Actually, he thought I should be doing science at school. And but my mother kind of sort of secretly in her own way kind of gave me a lot of encouragement. Um,
What did that look like?
um, she would just, she would always. Oh, one thing they did do was that my grandfather died when I was about 14, and he didn't have very much money, but what he did do, the money that he did, um, was my mother's father. She spent the money on a piano for me. That was a big thing to have a piano in the home.
Was it like a grand piano or
No, it was just a
no?
grand, it was just an upright.
Okay.
Um, but that made a huge difference because it meant that I could just practice whenever I wanted, you know, uh, and that really did make a difference.
Did you
Um,
have any siblings or anything that they didn't like you
I've got
playing all the music?
a younger brother.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I
Did
mean, he
he
was
like listening to you with the music?
did Martin like listening to me playing the music? Yeah, he probably did actually. But he was much more into kind of rock music,
Okay.
during his teens, whereas I was really quite into classical music in my teens, and then I got kind of more into rock music and jazz, when I was in my 20s, funnily enough.
What brought the change? Did you just
I
listen to
guess,
artists you liked more?
uh, yeah, I think it was it was. the art of composition, I began to listen to things slightly differently. You know, I began to think about how chords and and musical structures were put together. So,
Mm,
I found a lot of pop music really interesting. Particularly black music in the 70s.
oh wow, okay.
And so it was just that really. I was just kind of really listening out and kind of constructing it all in my head and working out, how they did that. Because I was having to use my ears because most of the music wasn't written down. Whereas up until then, I'd been quite used to, analyzing Chopin and Bach, and but it was all written down. um, I guess I've always really liked music from, just just about every background, really,
Mm,
because in my job, it's kind of, I'm required to do that. I've done so much different, styles of music, from, really classical to, almost funk and chill out. So,
yeah.
yeah, I don't mind. I quite like to vary it, to be honest.
Now, do you have a favorite childhood memory when you were a child? Is there something that you think of very fondly?
Gosh, that's um, that's an interesting one. Um, you mean when I was very young, or in my teens, or just generally?
Just generally, it can be
Just
something you
generally.
were, yeah, when you were younger.
Yeah. We My grandparents moved to a little island near actually belonged to the United Kingdom, but it was actually
Mm,
much closer to France, called Jersey. And that was great because we were, we were in kind of in the north of Scotland, and the weather was never that great, but we used to spend summers in this island, just often the north coast of France.
mm.
Um, and that was idyllic, actually. I can just remember it was just feeling the warmth after a winter in Scotland. Um, that's kind of Those are probably my happiest memories, were kind of from there, really.
Was it spending time with your grandparents as well, or
Yeah. I mean, mainly, yeah. But my brother and I got on very well. We're only 2 years difference between us, so
okay.
we were very close when we were growing up. Um, and then, I've also got some really happy memories of kind of, the early days of playing music with other people when I was about 13 or 14, and, playing in an orchestra,
Yeah.
and realizing that this was something I was going to be good at, and that was almost certainly going to dominate my life. I mean, I can remember a few particular occasions when it became obvious.
Is there
Um,
like a piece of music that you think describes your personality?
I don't think so. I mean, I was going through so many phases, and then I was a real massive fan of Bach to begin with.
Yeah.
But very quickly I was on to Ravel and Debussy, and I'm still big fans of those. And then, much more modern music, like, with like Stravinsky and Bartok and Messiaen and stuff like that. So I was into all that quite early on, you know. But also my dad used to listen to a lot of Miles Davis. Um, and so I'm a massive Miles Davis fan now. Um, so I probably listen to Miles Davis more than any other person these days. Um, yeah, so I've gone, full gamut, really.
But do you think any of the pieces of music you've written, for instance, do you think there's one in particular that kind of speaks to who you are as a person or how you feel you put more of yourself into it?
I mean, that's a good question, but it's funny how you don't really, I don't really think about myself when I'm doing it. I'm thinking about, because my job is kind of to put myself in the place of somebody
That's true, yeah.
in the movie and try and feel what it's like for them in that character.
Mm.
So it's very rare that I'm ever kind of really thinking, about myself, really. It's all about the characters on the screen.
Do you like that? Like getting to, because I know a lot of jobs are kind of introspective sometimes, but it seems like with
Mm.
your job, you're thinking more about characters, other people than yourself. Do you enjoy that kind of escape from thinking about yourself and being able to put yourself in those situations? Or do you find that you don't have enough time even to think about things that like you would like to process more yourself?
I find I don't have much time to process anything. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, whether that's a good or a bad thing, I don't know. Yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's one of the problems with the job is it's pretty all-consuming, and it's
Mm,
usually it's pretty full on all the time. You're quite kind of constantly under pressure.
mm,
Um, and I've kind of got used to that. And the things that are good about it are when you do a good job and people really appreciate it, and it's very much a team effort making a film. It's not just you, you're working with the director and the editor and the producer, and we're all trying to do things to the best of our ability. I
yeah.
mean, when that happens and when that really takes off, it's a very rewarding, kind of feeling. You kind of and that, I suppose, that's when I can feel kind of, I can maybe start to think about myself and thinking, well, actually, that's you did a good job there, and um and that's probably all I need.
Mm. What if you were to write an autobiography about your life? What would you title it?
Um, oh boy, God, you really put me on there, Daniel. Um, I mean, I'd probably be something probably like, the phrase "jack of all trades."
Yeah.
It's kind of a bit like that. I'm kind of good at an awful lot of things without particularly really being a master at any one thing.
Like what kind of things? Like music? Like
Like,
on
playing the piano, I'm not a genius playing the piano, but I'm pretty good. I play the double bass. Again, I'm pretty good. I can play lots of, different instruments. Um, I'm, I'm, um,
can you cook?
I'm a pretty good cook, actually.
Yeah, good cook
Yeah.
too.
Without being, a master chef, it kind of, I'm proving my point. Yeah. I was a pretty good footballer,
Really?
without being good enough to be a professional kind of. So yeah, I can usually get by in just about anything.
Is there something though you wish you were really, really good at that you were like a genius in? Or do you like the fact that you're good at a lot of things, but nothing is like perfect to you?
I mean, I think if I'd started the piano when I was a lot younger, and I'd had, and I was a really, really good, pianist,
Mm,
I could, but then again, would I have ended up being a composer? Because one of the things that drew me to composition was the fact that I was never going to be a concert pianist. I just, I was never good enough. And I mean, that's such a crowded market as well. Anyway, that it kind of that I was sort of led into being a kind of composer, because of that. And supposing if I'd been a really virtuosic pianist, would I have actually got into composition, and would I have stayed? That,
Mm.
that, yeah. But even then, I've ended up in playing jazz, actually. I mean, that's one thing. I'd love to be able to play piano like somebody like Bill Evans, for instance.
Yeah.
You know, and I do play some of his stuff. But really to have that facility would have been great, actually.
Do you have a piece of music you've written that you're very fond of, that you like a lot?
Yeah, no, this varies actually quite a bit. I mean, obviously, the theme to Downton Abbey is kind of so famous.
Yeah,
And I've done a lot of talking about it.
I bet.
Uh, yeah, and it's so simple. I mean, that's what's so great about it, is it is so simple, but yet it's so recognizable. And I don't know. I it's kind of hard to explain how something can be that simple, but yet be so recognizable as well. I so I yeah, I'm very fond. I'm very fond of Downton Abbey, but I think, and then there was another show I did called 20,000 Streets Under the Sky that I'm not sure if it ended up in America. That was one of my best scores, I think.
What's it called?
It's called 20,000 Streets Under the Sky.
And that's what the series is called?
Yeah, it was just a
Hmm.
three-part series. And Little Dorrit, I think Little Dorrit has probably got most of my my best music in it.
Yeah, beautiful.
You
Do
know,
you
there's
play the
one.
violin?
No,
No.
no. I mean, I can get a sound out of a violin, but no. But yeah, it's a one. I mean, do you get the television series Shetland where you are?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's another title sequence I'm really pleased with, and I'm doing a new version of it at the moment because they've got there's another series of that coming out, and they've decided to revamp the whole title sequence, and
Okay.
it's now longer, so I'm having to sort of extend it, and actually I'm really enjoying that. And also, the music for The Last Kingdom as well. I'm real actually, when I think about it, some of the music I've done with the singer Ivor for The Last Kingdom, I think it's been some of the most interesting music I've done.
Mm.
Yeah. Uh, and certainly I really enjoyed doing our last album. That was because it's not just a soundtrack album. It's we take the material that we've made for The Last Kingdom, and then we actually work on it and expand it, and we do things for the soundtrack album that we'd never be able to do, in the series itself,
Mm.
musically. And I find that quite interesting. Yeah.
Is there a time period that you really enjoy learning about or even writing music for?
Not particularly, no. Because my my job's not really to make you feel like you're in that period with the music. For instance,
Hmm.
you know, Downton Abbey set in 1912, but you couldn't really say that the music was from that period. I mean, it's
Right.
got the veneer of that period because it kind of uses a piano and strings but really, if you analyze it, the music for Downton Abbey is more like it's closer to Coldplay,
Yeah. Okay.
you know, um, it's almost like pop music or kind of with a touch of Philip Glass sort of thing. And then there's also a bit of Ravel and Debussy in there as well at times. But it's much closer to pop music than it is to, English music of that period, like
Hmm.
Elgar. And then with The Last Kingdom, well, it's set in the 9th century. So, what kind of music would nobody knows what the music was like in the 9th century. And anyway, it's my job to get inside people's heads and explain to them, what's going on. So how can you do that with, music that was from the period? It's just not possible. I mean, even in Little Dorrit, which is 1820,
Yeah.
the music's really quite modern,
Yeah.
a lot of it.
Do
And
you
it's certainly not like, Beethoven or,
no. Yeah.
or Schubert, from that era.
Do you have a time period that you'd like to live in outside of this one?
Uh, Probably not. No,
No.
no, 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 I don't think so.
Why?
I think, I mean, there's probably just be things I'd miss, I mean, in some of the time periods of, things I've worked on be pretty brutal, you know, England in the 9th century was pretty brutal. Uh, I mean, and, England in 1912, unless you were very, very wealthy, was pretty hard work,
Yeah.
you know, and then, between the wars in Britain, again, I think was pretty grim.
Mm.
Um, I mean, I would love to have stayed in the 60s,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah, I kind of growing up as a teenager, but it was more like the 70s actually. But that's got more to do with kind of aging, isn't it? And really, rather than a particular period that just happened to be the time when I was, at that age. Um,
Like a happy age or an age when you
yeah,
find
well, just
yeah.
exploratory kind of, in your early
Yeah.
20s, kind of, yeah.
Do you what this is kind of more of a funny question for you, I guess, in some ways, but if you had to be an animal, what would you be? What do you think your personality fits if you were to be an animal?
Oh, oh boy. I don't know, a cat possibly.
A
Seem to have
cat.
some cat. I seem to have some kind of affinity with cats.
What do you like
Uh,
about cats? Why do you think you're like a cat?
Um, they're kind of quite self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Um, kind of, brave, exploratory, kind of, mind you, they also sleep a lot.
Do you sleep a
Eh,
lot?
no, not
No?
particularly. No, 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 no. Um,
Do you wish you slept more?
I probably, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Do you have
yeah.
cats at home?
Well, we don't at the moment, actually. We did have two cats. We've got a dog. We did have two cats, but both of them have died
Oh,
relatively recently. I mean, they were like 18 or 19 years old. They were old.
oh,
We'd
okay.
had them for that length of time, but
Do you want to get another one?
it's now that my kids have left home, it's just my wife and I, and actually having the dog's quite old now as well. It's it's harder for us to do things because
Yeah,
we always have to get back home for the dog.
yeah.
So I think um I don't think we'll get. I mean, we got the pets kind of for the children
Mm.
as well. So I don't think we'll get another cat for the time being. Maybe in another few years.
So I know you mentioned your family, your wife. What um what do you think makes life beautiful for you in this season that you're in?
Um, I think I both my kids are in a good place.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
with good, and they both got really nice partners. They're
Mhm.
very close to and are very supportive, and they're both very healthy. Um, that's kind of, I can't really ask for more than that, really. Um, and I just like the day-to-day business of, what I do, making music and creating
Yeah.
music. I'm quite into the sound. I'm a bit obsessed with the sound of it as well. So I've spent quite a lot of time and money kind of on equipment and new synthesizers and things like that. And um that's kind of what, keeps me going. And then, my wife, now that the kids have left home, I'm trying to do a bit less work,
Mm.
so that my wife and I can go off and, visit Europe, a lot more. That's the plan. Anyway.
Where do you guys want to go?
Well, we both love France and Italy and Spain, basically.
Mm.
So, we usually end up in one of those countries.
What do you like about it? Is it like the music or like the culture or
Just the kind of general culture and the
yeah.
weather, the food, the um, the countryside. Uh,
Do you guys go back to
yeah,
Scotland or do you live in England right
yeah,
now? Yeah.
yeah. No, I live in London now,
Okay.
but I've got a flat in Edinburgh. So, my wife's not Scottish. She's English. But yeah, we get up to Scotland quite a bit. Yeah.
Do you
Yeah, I love
miss it?
coming
Do you
back.
like Scotland?
So yeah, I do miss it. Yeah. But whether I'll end up back there, I don't, I'm not entirely sure.
Mm.
Um, because I've been down in London for 35 years.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah. So I think we're probably here for good, basically.
Then what makes life hard?
What makes life hard? Um I I mean, if Britain's not in a great place at the moment,
Mm.
both politically and economically, and Brexit's um, been a real disaster. And I feel like I'm living in a country that is kind of slowly declining,
Okay.
and I can't see at the moment a way out of that. Um, So that's kind of what bothers me the most at the moment. I find it a bit depressing to live in a country that is declining, is getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas if
How do
you're,
you feel like it's getting worse? Is it more of the financial end, or do you think people?
well, well, it's fine. You know, I'm absolutely fine. We are absolutely fine because, you know, Downton Abbey is so popular. I mean, virtually everything I do gets sold all over the world, so I don't have
Right.
any, I don't have any financial problems. But I don't particularly like to live in an environment where clearly people do
Mm,
have financial problems, and that's kind of what's happening here. You know, the rate of inflation is getting really quite scary.
mm,
Um, it's going to be really, it's getting really tough for people. Um, Plus, Brexit has made lots of cultural things much harder. So
mm,
the little things that you might not notice at the moment, but you know, maybe in 5 years' time you will notice.
mm,
Um, and it's that gradual disintegration of a country that I think is
mm.
quite hard to sit back and watch. Um,
And what is there anything with, like, personally outside of the country that you find hard, like, in your life? Like, is there um something that you find disheartening from a personal level as opposed to more of like the country?
mm, yeah, you know, not particularly, Daniel. No, you know,
Hmm.
I'm aware of my own mortality, and
Yeah.
but I still see I'm still healthy, and I don't have any health issues. I mean, I suppose as you get older, you know, you can't stop but thinking, you know, is there ever, you know, is everything okay? And you know, you start to get more and more
Yeah.
paranoid about, you know, little things. But no, no, really, no. I'm I'm probably in as good a place as I've ever been actually at the moment.
Mm.
I guess, yeah. So
And what do you think life means? Like, what does it mean for you now that in this time of life that you're in? What does life mean to you? Because I know you were saying in some ways like music keeps you going. You really enjoy music. Um,
yeah.
like, is the
Um
meaning of life to you like your job, your music? Um, or what would you define it as for you?
yeah, I'd say it probably is the music. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the most important thing. And then, you know, obviously, you know, my family are all sort of part of that.
Mm.
Um, but as far as me personally goes, yeah, that's what, yeah, that's what drives me. You know, I'm just kind of obsessed with music.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, you know, I had thought about retiring, but
Mm.
then I thought, well, what am I? You know, if I don't write music, what am I? Who am I? So I've decided not to retire and just kind of keep going until nobody wants me anymore.
Do you think is there anything apart from you and music? Like, do you think without music, can you define yourself or not really without the music?
Not really without the music, no.
Mm. What do you love about it?
I just love the way it kind of makes me feel and makes me lifts me out, or makes me um empathize with other people and situations more. I mean, that's kind of what I
Mm.
concentrate on, is that, I mean, I keep saying to my, if I, you know, because I give the odd lecture now and again, um,
Mm.
and one of the things I say to him is that, you know, being a film composer, you have to, it's so much more than just writing music. You know, you have to be able to understand the story, and you have to have empathy with the
Mm.
characters or the people that you know, that you're writing music for. You know, just being a good composer isn't enough. You know,
Mm.
you have to have a much more rounded kind of idea of humanity, really, in order to do it.
How do you think music's helped you see that? A more rounded view of people?
I think I'm not sure that music has made me see that. I think I always had that because my mother, you know, was like that. She always had a very good. My mother had a lot of empathy for other people, and
Mm.
I could sense it, as I was growing up. And I guess that's what kind of attracted me to film music was, when clearly when I watched a film, I could see how um how powerful it was watching, a story, and how powerful the music made you
Yeah.
feel. It just kind of rammed home the um you're kind of makes you kind of there with them. Um
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah. Mhm.
But then again, it's interesting because even with like Little Dorrit, when you were like Andy Serkis's character, who's pretty evil.
Aye.
Um, yeah, like how would you? It's interesting because how would you say that the music helps make him more empathetic?
Well, it doesn't. Uh I mean, you don't. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point. I mean, how do you need um I mean, there isn't really enough examination of his upbringing to know whether to have empathy or not with him. I mean, he's just
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's a whole backstory there that we've all kind of missed. Um, but he's quite mischievous,
Mm-hmm.
though, and I think the music kind of, there's a slight mischievous quality to him.
Yeah.
You know, he's not entirely unredeeming. Um, and in the end, it's quite funny the way that he, with the house collapsing and stuff, isn't it? It's not funny, but it's, you're kind of rooting for the house in the end to kind of engulf him, aren't you?
Yeah.
Um,
So what is there something in your life you haven't done yet that you want to do?
um, no, not really, actually. No.
What's the last thing you did that you wanted to do and you checked it off?
I don't really think like that.
No. Okay.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, so I can't actually imagine what that would be.
Well, it
Um,
sounds, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like for you, writing music is kind of encompassing all you want to do because you're doing
yeah,
so many different things.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. Yeah.
Does your wife like music too?
Yeah, she does. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Although she's an artist.
Oh, really? She
Yeah,
paints?
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
So then
Uh,
do you like spend time together where you're composing and she's painting?
not really, no. She's got her own studio. And this studio here, this is in the basement of our house. But she's got her own separate one. Um,
Okay.
and we've done a few projects together. We've done a few things, that she's had in like an installation, and I've done the music for it. But by and large, we're quite separate, really.
What does she like to paint?
She does, she does things like she'll do loads of different layers, and then
Oh
she'll
wow. Okay.
she gouges out of the layers with a Stanley knife, kind of
Oh
thousands of circles. And that's just one of the things she does. It's quite amazing, actually.
wow.
Yeah, so it's kind of it's quite abstract, but it's not figurative
You think
paint.
you could put music to it?
Well, it's just yeah, you probably could. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I haven't done that yet though.
Be neat if you. I've never thought of that. Like I don't know if you could do an art show where you like showcase the art and then the music is showcasing each character of the art, which would be kind of cool. I don't know if you've ever seen the film Loving Vincent, where they use the. Have you seen it? Where they use the
I have.
music?
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah,
It's really
yeah,
cool, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
very good. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we should think of doing something like that together, actually. Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll
But it
mention
sounds
it
like
to.
you are busy though. It sounds like you do a lot of things that,
I am.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, and certainly, I mean, certainly for the rest of the year, well, maybe up until February, I'm really busy, and then we're doing another Downton Abbey movie
Oh,
next
wow, look at
year.
you.
Yeah, so that I think this will be the last one.
I
No,
don't know. They always say that about.
no, I know.
You never know though.
No,
And then you're right, that particular film series has been huge, especially
oh,
here.
massive. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But so have you so you've been doing music for how long? Is it 35 years since you've been in London or where
So
you've been actually composing scores?
I've been composing since I was in my early 20s, really.
Okay.
Yeah, so 50, no, not 50. Yeah, 45 years basically. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And when you were starting to do it, was it for a film or was that just for you?
No,
Like per
I didn't do my first film till I was about 32, I think. But
Oh wow.
I worked for, you know, dance companies and worked for
Mm,
theater, and I was also performing as well at the same time, and I was writing for orchestra. I was just basically doing everything I could to make a living
mm.
in London. And then when I got with my first film, that's when I realized that that's really what I wanted to do. It just came
Mm.
so naturally to me.
So then I have one last question for you. Is there an element in nature that you really love and why?
I mean, we've got a really nice garden here in London that
Yeah.
that we really appreciate. And we both like sitting out in the garden basically. So flowers really. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What do you love about flowers?
I just like the kind of the vibrancy and the color and the kind of sort of being alive about it, and the kind of and and also find them quite fascinating, the just sheer number of variety, and kind of watching them grow from nothing,
Mm,
to I find that that's very interesting.
yeah. I love roses and violets. I think those are
Yeah, we've got 28 different varieties of rose in the garden.
Your garden must be big.
It is big, yeah,
It's a big garden?
yeah.
Okay. Wow. Do you grow
Um,
veggies in there too? And or is
Not
it just
really. No,
okay.
no, no, no. It's mainly all flowers. And to be honest with you, the roses were here when we when we bought the place.
Oh,
So it was
wow.
the previous people who kind of but we kind of bought it because the garden was so good. Kind of
Oh, wow.
yeah. So yeah.
Does it smell beautiful? It must smell like a lot of different
Oh, I
fragrances all.
does, especially at this time of the year. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is it hot in London like it is here?
It's
Because here
been
it's like
it's not funny enough, not today. It's actually quite wet today, but it's been really warm. Yeah. Whereabouts are you? Are you in New York? New York, did you say?
Virginia.
Oh, you're in
So
Virginia. Yeah.
we're very hot. I mean, we're talking,
Yeah.
yeah, like 85 to 90 degrees and humid. So
Oh,
it's not as nice to be outside.
no, no, right.
But I really enjoyed talking to you. I wanted to thank you
Uh,
so much because I know you're so busy and I so appreciate that you wanted to take the time.
that's fine, Daniel. Yeah.